Today we have the Canon RF 35mm F1.8 macro IS STM lens. Hello and welcome to our channel. In this video, we will be reviewing the Canon RF 35mm F1.8 macro IS STM lens. We are always excited to talk about a macro lens. Why? Because it is so versatile in its usability and the features and the high quality that it offers. It is always good to be using a macro lens. Canon says this particular lens is ideal for close-up photography, street photography, travel photography and landscape photography. With the focal length that it has and the perspective that it creates, it is definitely going to be a good one for all these situations. In this particular video, we have put this particular lens to the test and see how well it performs to the claim that Canon has and more than that as well. We tried this particular lens for different scenarios. We tried it for close-up, of course. We tried it for landscape as well as portraiture in controlled as well as uncontrolled light. We saw how well it performs optically, how good it is in terms of the performance overall as well as the build quality, and what kind of pictures we can create if you are planning to buy this particular lens. That is what we will see. We will also be sharing the images that we have taken during our test in order to make sure that you enjoy the pictures as well as you can judge for yourself about the result and the image quality of this particular lens. We had great expectations from the RF 35mm f1.8 macro lens. Many reasons for this. First, it's a macro lens. With the 1:2 macro ratio that it offers, we were expecting really great images. Whether it is close-up photography or tabletop photography, it should offer good pictures for any close-up work that we do. Second, it's a prime lens, and we know prime lenses are always made for high image quality, and that is what we expected from this particular lens, the most important thing of course. The next one being a focal length, that is 35mm. The 35mm focal length offers a great perspective whether it is for street life or travel or whether it is wide angle portraiture that we shoot, and that is why we were really excited to see how this lens performs in the field for all the different genres of photography that it is made for. What is the cherry on top for this particular lens is the 5 stops image stabilization that this particular lens has. What it means is, apart from all the advantages that I just talked about, this lens is going to perform even great in low light and we don't have to worry about slow shutter speed resulting in camera shake. Speaking about the optical image performance of this particular lens, we definitely need to talk about the sharpness, because sharpness is the first thing that a photographer expects from a good quality lens. And when it comes to the RF 35mm f1.8 macro, this lens does not disappoint in terms of the sharpness. The sharpness that we get from this particular lens is amazing. It is really great. What we experienced though was, being a 1.8 lens, we may need to be absolutely accurate and we need to nail the shot in order to get the absolute sharpness at 1.8. For some reason, especially for doing close-up photography, if the camera does not focus correctly on the main subject, then we may not get the best sharpness that we expect from this kind of a lens. What we noticed was, when you cut down the aperture a little, that is f2 and beyond, we got much better pictures in terms of the sharpness throughout the f number range. So, if you cannot get everything right on f1.8, ideally try shooting with the f number that is a bit higher for much better sharpness throughout the image. The color reproduction of this particular lens is really great. What we noticed is, every time we took the pictures, whether we took pictures in low light, whether we took pictures in bright daylight, when we took pictures in cloudy conditions where the contrast was low, or whether we took pictures in bright sunlight, clear sunlight, even with the high contrast scene, we noticed that every time the lens produces accurate colors. The saturation is good and everything looks nice, no color shifts at all. So what we understand here is definitely the high quality glass elements that Canon uses for this lens, and the super spectra coating is really being beneficial for this particular lens in terms of the colors that this lens produces, and you will always be pleased with the colors that you get using this particular lens. Talking about the contrast that we get from this particular lens, it is really amazing. Definitely the high quality glass elements and the coating, they do a good job here as well. The pictures that we took them in direct sunlight, we took them in cloudy condition, at night time, during daytime, and every time we took pictures, every time we put this particular lens to the test, we got amazing contrast throughout the pictures that we took. Whether you use this particular lens for close-up photography, for travel photography, for street photography, for portrait, this particular lens is always going to produce a contrast that is always pleasing to the eye. The RF 35mm lens features a hybrid IS which is effective up to 5 stops. In our experience, we found the image stabilization to be very helpful, especially when doing macro. What we did was, when we went close to the subject, we cast our own shadow on the subject, and this resulted in a slower shutter speed. The image stabilization really helped there, and we got pictures that were sharp without any camera shake. The 5 stops image stabilization definitely is helpful even when shooting night photography of landscape or street or even portrait. This lens features a hybrid image stabilization, meaning this particular lens can stabilize for 2 different camera movements. First being a shift camera shake, and second being an angle camera shake. Angle camera shake means the camera, if it tilts up and down, the lens can compensate for that. And shift camera shake meaning even if the camera moves a bit up and down, still the lens can stabilize for that as well. This feature is really helpful and can benefit lots of photographers in different scenarios. This particular lens produces minimum amount of distortion, and we noticed that for landscapes there is no visible distortion in the pictures. This being a 35mm lens, whenever we took portraits from a closer distance, we did notice barrel distortion in the pictures. This particular issue though is not specific to this lens, but it is going to be with most 35mm lenses. So what is the solution? Being a 35mm lens, we will not be taking a portrait from a close distance. By maintaining a good distance, we can avoid the distortion from this particular lens. For macro, it is not an issue, because when we talk about macro, the proportion could be different, and definitely the subject is smaller, resulting in a low amount of distortion in the pictures. The RF 35mm lens has a speed f1.8. Many times photographers prefer shooting at the lowest f number for different reasons. Maybe the level of light is low, maybe they want a better background blur, and when we use this particular lens in a similar situation with the lowest f number, we found the performance to be really good. We noticed that the background blur is really smooth and the quality of bokeh is quite pleasing as well. What we notice though is when shooting 1/3 or 2/3 down, that is either at f number 2, 2.2 or anything higher than that, the quality of images is much better as the sharpness increases quite a lot and the images are much more pleasing as compared to shooting at 1.8. When we talk about a high quality lens, we definitely talk about its backlight performance. Talking about the RF 35mm macro lens, the backlight performance is really great. When we took pictures with backlighting, we did not notice any lens flare, and we understand that the super spectra coating on this particular lens does an amazing job of controlling flare and ghosting. Most of the pictures that we took were in overcast conditions, and because of the soft light that we had, the backlighting was not that prominent. But when we took some pictures where it was direct sunlight and the light was harsh, still we did not notice any lens flare with this particular lens. What we understand is even if this particular lens is not a L series lens, still the performance of this lens is really quite high, and we did not notice any issues when doing backlighting, and there was no chromatic aberration that was seen in the pictures that we took. The autofocusing on this particular lens is great. The focusing is fast, it is precise, and it is absolutely quiet. The STM motor that Canon uses for this particular lens does an amazing job. Yes, technically the STM motor, when it works, it does not make any audible sound, and this is a big advantage with this particular lens. What that means is, even if you are using this lens for video shooting, still it will not make any audible noise in the videos that you shoot. What we noticed though was, whenever we are using this particular lens with manual focus, the ring needs to be turned quite a lot, almost 360 degrees. This is good. Why? Because it gives a very precise control on the distance where we are focusing. What is not so good is, in case if we want to make a quick adjustment manually for focusing, it needs too much of turning of the ring for focusing. The RF 35mm 1.8 lens is really comfortable and nice to handle. The lightweight and compact body of this particular lens makes it really easy to use. In fact, not only on the bigger R, R5 or R6, even when using this particular lens on the Canon EOS RP, which is a relatively smaller body, it is quite nice and feels well balanced. What is great about this particular lens is, being a small and a compact size lens, it is very easy to use from either a higher angle or from a lower angle due to the compact design and a well balanced design when mounted on a camera. This lens is not a L series lens, so it does not feature any weatherproofing. So it is not dust proof or weather resistant. In Canon standard, this particular lens, not being a L series lens, it is not a premium lens from them. When we look at this particular lens though, the look and the design, the feel, it looks quite nice, and by no means it means or it feels like a cheap lens. It is quite decent lens in our opinion. At $499 or about 45,000 Indian rupees, this lens would have been a perfect one had it had the weather sealing. Because as a macro photographer, you are going to be out there in the field where there could be dust and moisture. But not having weather sealing on this one does not mean that this is a bad lens. It simply means that when we are out there in the field, we need to be more careful with our lens. Looking at the technical specifications of this lens, we understand that yes, Canon definitely has aimed high for the image quality on this particular lens. The lens is made of 11 glass elements arranged in 9 groups. They come with super spectra coating in order to help with flare and ghosting. This lens features a 9-blade diaphragm, and the minimum aperture on this one is f22 and the widest aperture or the maximum aperture is f1.8. This is quite a compact lens, and the diameter of the lens is 52 mm and it weighs about 305 grams. Being a macro lens, having a macro ratio of 1:2, the closest focusing distance is very important for a photographer. Talking about this lens, the closest focusing on this one is 0.17 meters or 0.56 feet. The lens features an optical image stabilization or IS, which is effective up to 5 stops. And for focusing, this lens uses the quiet and fast stepping motor or STM. With the experience that we had of using this particular lens, in our opinion, this particular lens is a great one for its amazing optical image performance, and this lens will be a very good addition to your kit.